All right, welcome everyone to Carl's Creepshow. He's an actor, an art director, writer, producer, director. In 2013, he portrayed the iconic slasher Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw 3D. Welcome, Mr. Dan Yeager.
It's good to be here.
How are you doing?
I'm good on a
Yeah,
beautiful Sunday night.
it is. It is a little chilly here.
Yeah, here
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
I
It's
still don't have my wood stove working, so.
oh, I ran out of wood at my garage. Not
Oh
good.
no.
No, not good. Got to restock. So, yeah, with the Bad Anger Pictures, how did that come to be? How'd you meet Ron Scott?
Um, I met Ron through our mutual friend Terry McMinn,
Okay.
who, of course, was famous for playing Pam in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And Ron was doing some web design and stuff for her, and he was looking for more clients. And she thought of me because I think we had talked that I needed to do some stuff, and anyway, she just hooked us up, and we really just started working on uh, a couple of websites and social media things. He's good at that stuff. And I realized after a couple of months of working with him that he and I have a lot of complementary skills. He does a lot of things I don't do, and I do a lot of things he doesn't do. And he wanted to get into the movie business for real. So um, I told him, let's make movies. And, he's just a really good guy. He's a really good friend. And, in Hollywood, a friend of mine described it as high school with money. And, you know, everybody works with their friends. That's just the way the business works. So,
Mhm.
anyway.
Okay. What are some current projects that Bad Anger Pictures, you and yourself, Ron, are working on?
Well, we are in post production on a little short we shot last fall called Volition. Um, it's a super low budget short, just eh, kind of a little experiment, so to speak, but a great project. We are inches from a final cut, and then I have a buddy who is working on scoring, and so
Okay.
we're doing the soundtrack now. Um, we've got sound effects and that whole part of it. Um, we should get it to into color correction in the next couple of weeks. I think we can lock the picture and be done with that. You eventually have to give up. You're
Yeah.
never done. You just give up.
Is there a tentative date set for release or anything?
Uh, no, but I mean, we were hoping to have it done last fall, but everything takes longer than you think it will. And
That sure.
when you're working without a budget, I mean, we really made the thing for very little money. I think when I first wrote the thing and was budgeting it out, I figured 50 grand would do a nice job on it. I
Mhm.
think we ended up doing it for about, I don't know, six.
Oh wow,
Although we're not done, so I'm sure we're going to have to come up with some more money.
it's going to be something to keep an eye out for.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
But anyway, I hope before spring is over. I definitely don't want it, to linger on into May. But yeah, we had a lot of great supporters who
Mhm.
funded us. We did a crowd fund on it. It was awesome.
Mhm.
Um, you know, every time you turn around, something else hits you. And gives you a challenge. Um, and we're I personally I'm just dedicated to making a fantastic movie.
Awesome.
Um, you know, if I succeed, that'll be great. And,
Well,
Anyway,
I'm
it's you pull your hair out half the time. But,
yeah, I'm looking forward to taking that in. Uh,
well, good.
who are some of your main writing and acting influences?
Um, let's see. Um, Writing influences. I would have to say. Uh, Edgar Allan Poe was my first crush. I still find myself kind of, you know, uh, parodying,
Yeah,
Poe, and even writing, you know, what may be considered schlocky horror movies. You know,
Poe is phenomenal.
yeah.
Yeah, he really.
Um, Writers I admire. Truman Capote, I believe, is the greatest American writer ever. Um, his his ability to weave a phrase, just you know, that was he was incredible. Um, Cinematically, I love you know Stanley Kubrick, David Lean,
Mhm.
Peter Bogdanovich, um, Akira Kurosawa. Although Kurosawa is like I don't know, he's out there cinematically, kind of in a complete league of his own. He was doing things you know on this advanced level that maybe before I die I'll be able to see it on the horizon. But he was just incredible.
Awesome.
Anyway, I hope that answers the question. I always I get to rambling and then I forget the question. So I
Yeah,
just
no, that's good.
just hope I answer it.
I find a lot of the artistic folks that I talk to, I mean, it's usually a common trait somewhere along the line that Poe finds his way into a lot of people's work. He was phenomenal
Mm-hmm.
at what he done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, my first interview with Nicolas Vince, that was last month, and Nicolas quoted him as one of his influences as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, he certainly didn't. He didn't invent, horror literature,
no,
but I think he advanced it to a point where everyone recognized it.
it's often imitated.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right. On the Texas Chainsaw note now, what am I? Yeah, correct me saying 6 years ago.
Yeah. Hard to believe.
It's hard to believe 6 years. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. How do you feel that your version, Dan Yeager's version of Leatherface, differs from the rest?
Well, you really can't compare it to um, anything other than the original. The remake, while a great movie, was
Mhm.
not it was not the same characters at all. None of the characters
No,
were the same. Leatherface especially. He was really uh, a far simpler, monster, and and you know, it was just different. Anyway, I'm losing power. Hold on.
okay.
I don't know why. Pardon the interruption.
There we go.
Anyway, um, yeah, the remake, like I say, that really there's no real comparison to be made. I think between the movies, that's a separate thing altogether. Um, the and the ones that followed, Chainsaw 2, Leatherface, Chainsaw 3,
Mm-hmm.
and Next Generation, those were a completely different, tangent, that the writers sought to basically ignore, in making our movie. They went back to the very original to explore that specific storyline. And, so really the character I play is the same character as in the original, except he's gone through a complete life change. So I started with what Gunnar had created and tried to, bring him through the process of having his entire family slaughtered, having his house burned down, having him, have everything that, he had a lot of security at home, a lot of emotional security, and his identity was tied up with who he was within that context. And so, his world was completely destroyed by the time I get him. And then after that, he lived in this basement for 20 years, with a kindly grandmother. And, and presumably there was, there were other people along the way. So he had grown actually as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the original, he was not a human being.
No.
He was this husk. Gunnar said, if you took the mask off of Leatherface, you'd find nobody there. So he was this shell of a human being, and he found a way to, create himself. But by the time I get him, he no longer has anyone to do his thinking for him. He now has to, he started with the basic instinct to survive, and, grew from there. He went through his childhood in that basement, basically. And I think the writers tried to show that too. When they showed where he lived, with all the little toys and stuff, he was really, that's where his childhood began.
Mm-hmm.
And, at the end of 3D, we see, when Heather goes to, wipe some blood off the mask, there's a shot where you can see there's somebody behind the mask,
Yeah.
and he's feeling something, So, I mean, that's kind of, I don't know, where was I going? How to compare it with the other movies? I certainly consumed and analyzed all the other movies. And there were some interesting, subtleties, from Chainsaw 2, Leatherface was certainly he was certainly more, realized proto person. And, there were definitely some cues there. And every movie, they, brought something to the character, but it was
Definitely.
really going back to the original.
Personally, myself, I thought you had done a marvelous job bringing the humanistic side of the character out.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's one of the things that has changed about horror movies, is that audiences, I don't believe, readily accept pure evil for evil's sake. A monster who just is a monster. Mm-hmm. Not even because they like to be a monster, because that would imply there's something behind it. They're just a monster. It's just pure evil. And, especially in the context of a monster who lives in a house and, exists in a family, I think, he's required, or she is required, to have a point of view,
Yeah. Were there any specific things you did to get yourself into the mindset of the character?
Um, yeah, all the typical actory bullshit, Um, it was, and when you're actually, it's different preparing for the role and actually executing the role. You prepare for the role and work out, all of the motivations of the character, but you just need to kind of internalize that and know how to manifest it physically when you're actually doing the role. Camera acting is very mechanical that way. You just have to know how to convey the right meaning, especially when you don't have dialogue. That, then it's entirely a physical exercise,
Mhm.
and it was very physical.
It had to be warm wearing that mask.
Oh yeah, in
Wow.
in Louisiana in the summertime.
100 plus?
Oh, every day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Fortunately,
That's
Leatherface works mostly at night, so.
okay. How were now? I'm gonna try to get last names correct. How were director John Lawson Hop? Is that correct?
Lesson hop.
Lawson Hop and Carl Mazzicone?
Yeah, Carl
Yeah.
Mazyck.
Okay, Mazzicone. How were the two guys on set to work with?
Oh, Carl is a good friend. You know,
Okay.
we we still spend a lot of time together. Um, and nobody runs a movie set like Carl Mazzicone. I mean, because he really, it's hard being a producer. You have to, juggle so many competing interests. Unions breathing down your neck. Actors and crew, and I mean, it's an undertaking, and he's very good at it. He's kind of pulled away from it though, since the movie business has changed so profoundly. It's not nearly as fun as it used to be. Um, but anyway, he was great. I mean, the rest of the cast all lived in a hotel in Shreveport, and Carl and I lived in a house out in the outskirts of town.
Oh,
So
nice.
I didn't have to mingle with them. I mean, they're all a bunch of kids, except I mean, Paul Ray was fun, and uh, um, I'm terrible with names. Anyway, uh, Ollie, can't think of his name. Isn't that terrible? Anyway, and some of the other ones, they were more my age, but still, you know,
Offset, it's
it,
nice to have your own space too.
yeah. And I don't think he wanted them associating with me. He liked the idea that there was this barrier, between the characters, and he, you know, I think he used that somewhat to encourage that, and I was happy too. I just
Nice.
sit
Mike,
alone in the dark.
am I correct in saying you're the tallest gentleman to ever play the role also?
To date,
Six,
yes.
yeah, 6'6"?
Uh-huh.
Big man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It helps, I think,
It
cinematically.
it definitely adds to the feel of the character. It really
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah. The imposing stature, holding the chainsaw, just
Yeah.
something about it.
Yeah.
Most definitely. All right, we had 3 questions wrote in from some viewers, if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
All right, we got Justin W. writes in, and he wants to know, how did it feel the moment you seen yourself in full costume, and what was the first thought that came to your mind?
Um, I don't think I ever saw myself in full costume until the movie came out. Oh no, actually I watched it. I did watch, I made a point. I didn't really want to see, dailies, and in digital filmmaking, dailies are momentlies. Every shot, you can watch a playback. And I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it. And
losing you.
Finally, when we were shooting the scene where Leatherface peels the deputy's face off, I believe the first AD comes to me and he says, "You got to watch this." I said, "All right, I'll watch it." And so I went and watched it, and it's without sound. There's no sound playback, but it was just basically they played back a couple of the shots that they did of peeling that face mask, that face off to make a mask. And when he goes over, he's very happy that he got a new face. But anyway, I remember thinking, holy shit, how that's all completely unusable. How are we ever going to show that to anybody? It was so, I mean, standing there doing it, James McDonald, he's there in the chair, and I'm trying to, act like I'm peeling his face off and, kind of tickling him, and he's trying to twitch, and, we're trying to do it, and we're trying not to laugh. And then, to look at it in that frame, it was unreal. I mean, it was the grossest thing I ever saw. And I watched, I've watched autopsy videos, and it was just, oh my God, the whole cutting of the face, that whole thing. I remember thinking, oh my God, we just can't, that's going to end up on the cutting room floor. There's no way they're going to be able to use that. But, when you add a little soundtrack and you put it into context, it's less horrific. So a good bit of it survived.
Yeah,
I think that was really the only time I ever saw Leatherface, and I was just so kind of focused on what he was doing that I really didn't it didn't register with me, and I never felt like that doing the part. I never felt like I was doing anything so terribly wrong, which I don't think Leatherface would either. I mean, you don't go through life thinking that way. So in that regard, it worked.
Awesome. Doug S. writes in and wants to know, what was your favorite scene of the movie and why?
Favorite scene? It's a toss-up. There was something really profoundly and disturbingly satisfying about the stunt we did when I chased Kenny up the stairs and plant that meat hook in his back and drag him back down. I mean, first of all, I practiced it for about a week on the back stairs of Millennium Studios, getting the moments right. And then, Kieran Sanchez, I mean, he and I really worked it out. It was better than the cutting in half part. That was fun, but not quite as satisfying. The other one that I really enjoyed as an actor was actually getting an opportunity to act. It was at the end of it when they go back to the kitchen, that scene, because the entire emotional arc of the scene took place in a physical space, of about that much.
Yeah.
And it's that doing that actory stuff is a lot of fun. And I remember shooting that scene. John Lessenhoff, you mentioned it before. I don't think I really commented on. He was very kind of, let's just, fast and loose. Let's just see what we do. He every now and then he'd have a note, maybe you could try this. And, he was cool to work with that way. But anyway, this scene, he said, I don't know what I want on this. he said, let's try it a few different ways, you know, where you're very aggressive, and then, you know, do it in steps.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, from very, you know, passive to very aggressive. And so I had you know, I mean, that was the scene to me when I first read the script that really struck me. I thought after I read that, you know, holy shit, why do I feel sorry for Leatherface? You know, I hadn't processed it at all. But anyway, you know, I knew it was to be an emotionally impactful moment, if that's a word. And, you know, so Alexandra and I kind of talked about what to do. And I told her, you know, I said, when you go to wipe the mask, I said, go slow, because I've got to move away. And it's only, like I say, this much of a move, but it's important, you know, it says something. And so on the first take, you know, John just said, let's go. And we go through the entire thing, and it was, you know, it was emotionally draining, because there's a lot of things swirling around in that moment for both characters. And, you know, I did the thing, and, you know, grabbed her arm and pushed it away and got up and walked out. And, you know, Alexandra was left there alone. And this was on a soundstage, and the studio was silent. Not a sound anywhere. And you know, nobody yelled cut. And finally, John, you know, yells cut. And, you know, you could hear people starting to move around. And I could hear across the soundstage my buddy Carl Mazyck say, "Hey, I think our boy did it." that was rather, it was nice of him to say. And I don't think he realized his voice carried over the entire soundstage. But then going back to the makeup chair after that, Mike, God, I'm blanking again. Mike, he was with K&B Effects. They were the ones that did the mask. You know, I sit down in the chair, and it's very emotionally draining to do that kind of thing. So I sit down in the chair. I didn't say anything. And he comes and he takes the mask off. And he just looks at me dead in the eye and said, "Best Leatherface ever."
Awesome.
And he was, you know, he was a big fan. Mike McCarty. I couldn't think of his name. That's terrible. Anyway, you know, he loves Texas Chainsaw, and was a big fan, and would always get me pumped up for the action scenes, you know, by giving me a little "get that bitch Leatherface" before every shot, you know. So that helped a lot, you know. It immediately kind of triggers the mindset you need. You got to get that bitch.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, Kate L. This is more of a little fun question, actually. Kate L. writes in, and she wants to ask if you could sit down for a dinner and a conversation with anybody, dead or alive, who would it be? What would the meal be? And the topic of choice?
Anybody.
Anyone, dead or alive.
Well, you know, on a purely emotional level, I'd say, of course, my mother, but, you know, that doesn't count. Historical figure or person I've known, even, that's a tough one. Anybody. Man, I don't know, probably Hitler.
Oh, wow.
I'd love to find out what the fuck he was thinking.
That'd be
And
an interesting topic.
And we'd go to Katz's Deli.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be an interesting conversation to say the least.
Yeah, it's a question, and there are just so many. I mean, hell, if I could, yeah, Thomas Jefferson is somebody I'd love to talk to.
That'd be
I think
neat.
we communicate. I don't think Hitler spoke English, so that might be tough. And I certainly don't speak German. And Jesus, I mean, who wouldn't want to talk to Jesus? What the hell happened? Nobody really knows.
No.
I really do believe there was somebody that we come to call Jesus. There's a debate on did Jesus actually exist. There was somebody, whoever that was. That's who.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I'd rather talk to Jesus's brother James. But again, the language barrier would be insurmountable. Yeah. English didn't exist in those days, so.
I never actually had a plan for the interview, but that kind of segues into something me and you had a little discussion about before.
Really?
You have an interest in some ancient history stuff and the Turin Shroud.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We never discussed it a big amount, but we did talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that after?
Well, I believe in science, and there's been some shoddy science done in regard to the Shroud of Turin, that assumptions were made, that were not correct assumptions. And, science being what it is, they go back and they try and correct it. Although some people do tend to get, a little emotionally invested in being right. And so I think it's a slow process, but it seems like the scientific evidence is that it's a cloth from the first century or thereabouts, with an image on it that is not chemical. They can't find any chemicals on it that would make
wasn't painted
here. And so it was done with some form of no ink. It was done with some form of energy. So it's like a photograph.
Yeah.
In that regard, some energy changed the fibers in that cloth to reveal that image. And then if you go, the science reveals that it is blood. There are blood stains on it. There are, wounds apparent, consistent with crucifixion. Mm-hmm. Until we answer how you could actually get that image onto the cloth, it's always going to be an unknown. I mean, yeah, we could all speculate that the body of that person was somehow, transfigured, to use the religious term, into energy. And it appears that the cloth was flat when the image was largely flat. So it was either stretched tight or the body was laying face down on a flat surface on it.
Yeah.
And, it's an enigma.
It is, most definitely.
There's more scientific evidence, I think, that points to it being correct than incorrect now, which is not what they believed through the 80s and 90s and even into the 2000s. But they've gone back and discovered a few mistaken assumptions they made about a few of their tests, especially the carbon dating thing. And that took that took somebody who knew something about, medieval linen restoration, and guys from JPL just don't know that stuff. So, they can't be faulted for making the wrong test. They just didn't know. And so, yeah, it's a fascinating thing.
Yeah, whatever the truth about it is, I mean, it's going to be interesting if one day they do find out the truth behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, most definitely. Maybe that's.
I mean, I'm not ready to say, it was, the crucified Son of God transforming into pure energy and, imprinting his image on a cloth, that's been preserved for 2,000 years. But you can't rule that out, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I've said a few times I've never been blessed with the gift of faith, so I kind of have to go with science.
Yeah.
But the science is actually fascinating.
It is, most definitely. Most definitely.
What do you think?
I actually, personally, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I think it was created through some means of radiated energy. What caused that, I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Um, uh, like you were saying, according to them, whoever's done the research on it or whatever, yeah, it seems like the cloth was either laid, like straight across, or it's not like the body was wrapped.
Right. It was
Right?
just laid.
Yeah, it seems like it was either laid down and somebody on top forcing down, like you said, or somebody on their back and the sheet laid over them, but it was stretched.
Yeah, it had to be tight because it contained so much topographical information.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
You can't do that if it's just draped over the face. All that would get lost.
No, exactly. Yeah. So there's so many, yeah, I don't know. It'd be an interesting thing to read up on if they can come across some information that further lets us know more about it. I mean, how long have they been researching the Turin Shroud? What a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that could be a future topic. I can probably get you back and we can have a full episode on that or something.
Well, I think we've exhausted my knowledge.
Well, and that's true enough too.
It's going to have to be some more science before I know anything more.
Yeah, true enough.
Or I got to do more reading.
Yeah. I mean, there's not a hell of a lot of information out there. I mean, it is what it is to this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other topics of interest?
I find everything fascinating. I saw an article. There is this. I believe he's Swedish. They call him Dr. Death because he wrote a book on suicide, basically a how-to book.
Wow.
Because assisted suicide is being, it's legal over there. And anyway, they came up with this machine. It's called the Sarco, as in sarcophagus.
Okay.
And it's basically a machine that will kill you. It reminds me a lot of that scene where Edward G. Robinson is ending his life in Soylent Green. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
No.
Great movie, Charlton Heston. And if you don't know it, the movie's about basically future society. And the scandal is that when you die, the government turns you into food for people. And anyway, Charlton Heston is investigating it and trying to figure it out. Edward G. Robinson is a radical who's basically just given up. And so he goes to the government facility, says, I'm ready to go. And they put him in this room and they lie him on this thing, and you know, you get to pick the colors and the music and the visual of the room, you know, for your death. And he picks this beautiful music and this serene, beautiful scene. And anybody who wants to come say goodbye can say goodbye. And it's this beautiful living funeral thing. But anyway, the Sarco kind of reminds me of that, because it's got a window, and you know, you can set it up anywhere. You need a nitrogen canister, because that's what kills you.
Okay.
And there's a, you know, it's all electronically controlled and everything. And to use it, you need to get the password. And the only way to get the password is to go on their website and take a psychological test and prove that you're not crazy and, you know, want to die for the wrong reasons, I guess. I don't know how it all works on. But anyway, it was a fascinating thing. And they're actually working on getting the 3D printable files free online, so you can just print one, and then you probably have to buy the controller, you know, because you're not going to print that. Anyway, I found that fascinating.
That is interesting.
I don't know. I have no objection to suicide. I'm not ready to go yet, personally, but.
Oh, that is very interesting. It's yeah, I don't know. I'm not ready to go down that road yet, anyway. But you know,
nah. Although the way my back feels sometimes, I think about it.
All right. Well, thank you for taking time to do this.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks
Greatly appreciated. Can't wait to see what you got coming up next. I'm really going to keep my eye out for that flick you're working on.
Yeah, Volition, like I say, should be out, you know. Well, we're going to take it to film festivals first, so it won't be online for a while. But I might be able to get you a screener.
Nice.
And you know, we're always looking for money. So any of these listeners got any money? We've got 4 scripts in development. So
awesome.
For as little as $300,000, you could be an executive producer.
Executive producer. If I had 300 grand, we would talk.
All right.
Share, and thank you, Dan, and thank you for watching.